There's an island where outsiders don't just die, they vanish without a trace. In 2018, a young American missionary stepped onto its shores. Within hours, he was dead, killed by arrows from people the modern world has never contacted. His body never recovered. But here's what nobody's telling you. He wasn't the first. And the island's dark history goes back far deeper than anyone imagined. North Sentinel Island, 23 square miles of jungle in the Bay of Bengal. For the last 60,000 years, the Sentinelese people have lived here, completely isolated from civilization. No one speaks their language. No one knows their customs. And they want to stay that way. The Indian government has declared a 3-mile exclusion zone. Approaching the island is illegal, punishable by prison. But people still try, and they don't come back. The question everyone's asking is simple. What are they protecting? What do they want the world to see? November 2018. John Allen Chau, a 26-year-old American missionary, hired local fishermen to take him to the island. His mission? To convert the Sentinelese to Christianity. He wrote in his journal, "This might be my last letter. Please don't be angry at them if I get killed." He approached the beach. The Sentinelese responded immediately with arrows. One struck the Bible he was holding. He retreated, but the next day, he went back. His fishermen watched from a distance. They saw the Sentinelese drag his body across the sand. Then nothing. His body was never recovered. The Indian government tried, but even from helicopters, the Sentinelese shot arrows into the sky. They weren't letting anyone near. But here's the thing. Chau knew the risks. He'd researched the island for years. So what made him so certain he could succeed where everyone else had failed? Chau wasn't the first to die here. Not even close. 1974, a documentary crew approached the island. The director was immediately shot in the thigh with an arrow. They barely escaped. 1991, Indian authorities tried making peaceful contact. They brought coconuts as gifts. The Sentinelese accepted the gifts, then motioned for them to leave. No violence that time, but the message was clear. Come close, and you're not welcome. 2006, 2 fishermen accidentally drifted too close while illegally fishing. Their boat anchored near the island overnight. When dawn broke, the Sentinelese found them. Both men were killed. Their bodies were buried in shallow graves on the beach, a warning to anyone else who might approach. And then there's the incident no one talks about. The Nineveh, a merchant ship, ran aground on North Sentinel's reefs during a storm. Over 100 passengers and crew survived the wreck. For 3 days, they huddled on the beach, waiting for rescue. The Sentinelese watched from the jungle, silent, waiting. On the 3rd night, they attacked. Survivors reported relentless waves of arrows. When a rescue ship finally arrived, they found only 86 people alive. The others? Some died from the shipwreck. But witnesses reported seeing bodies dragged into the jungle. What happened to them? No one knows. But survivors spoke of something that still haunts researchers today. They said the Sentinelese weren't just defending their territory. They were hunting. So who are the Sentinelese? Here's where it gets stranger. Genetic studies suggest they're descendants of the first humans who left Africa 60,000 years ago. They're among the last uncontacted peoples on Earth, and they've chosen to stay that way. But here's the mystery. Every other tribe in the Andaman Islands has been contacted, studied, and sadly, many have been wiped out by disease. The Sentinelese? They've survived. How? Some researchers believe they have a cultural memory, passed down through generations, of what happens when outsiders arrive. Disease, death, destruction. Maybe their violence isn't random. Maybe it's survival. No one speaks their language. Not a single word has been translated. When Indian authorities attempted contact in the 1990s, they tried using languages from nearby tribes. Nothing worked. The Sentinelese didn't understand, or didn't want to. Linguists have analyzed the few audio recordings that exist. The sounds are unlike any other language in the region. It's as if they've been linguistically isolated for so long. Their language evolved into something completely unique. But there's something that bothers researchers. During the brief, peaceful contact in 1991, the Sentinelese communicated through gestures. They pointed, they motioned, they understood basic intentions. So why do they still attack? Is it fear, or is it something else? From above, North Sentinel Island looks like any other jungle island. Dense canopy, beaches, nothing unusual. But zoom in closer, and you'll notice something odd. There are no clearings, no large structures, no signs of agriculture. How do they survive? What do they eat? Where do they sleep? Thermal imaging satellites have detected heat signatures, likely fires and human activity. But the jungle is so thick, it's impossible to see details. The Sentinelese could have villages, burial grounds, ritual sites, and we'd never know. After the 2004 tsunami, which devastated the region, helicopters flew over to check for survivors. The Sentinelese emerged from the jungle, saw the helicopters, and fired arrows. They were alive. But how? How did they survive a tsunami that killed thousands on nearby islands? Some believe they have knowledge, passed down for millennia, about the ocean, about signs in nature, about survival. So let's talk about what experts say. The official explanation is simple. The Sentinelese are protecting themselves from disease. When British colonizers contacted the Andaman tribes in the 1800s, entire populations were wiped out by measles, influenza, and other diseases. The Sentinelese likely witnessed this. They saw neighboring tribes disappear, and they made a choice: total isolation. Anthropologists call it cultural preservation through aggression. It makes sense. It's tragic, but logical. The Indian government respects this. That's why the island is protected. That's why approaching it is illegal. Case closed, right? Except, there are things that don't add up. First, the 1991 contact. For the first time in history, the Sentinelese accepted gifts peacefully. Coconuts. No violence. Researchers thought they'd made a breakthrough. Then, suddenly, the Sentinelese stopped cooperating. No explanation. They went back to aggression. Second, the 2006 fishermen. They were killed and buried. But why? If the Sentinelese wanted to scare outsiders away, why not leave the bodies visible? Why bury them? Third, John Allen Chau's body. Witnesses say the Sentinelese dragged it into the jungle. The Indian government sent helicopters. They never found it. Where'd it go? And here's the detail that keeps researchers awake at night. After Chau's death, helicopters circled the island for days, searching for his body. Each time, the Sentinelese emerged and fired arrows. But observers noticed something strange. The Sentinelese weren't panicking. They weren't scared. They were organized. They moved in coordinated groups. They fired in patterns, almost like they'd done this before. One researcher put it this way: they weren't defending territory. They were executing a strategy. So what does that mean? Are the Sentinelese more advanced than we think? Do they have structures, weapons we haven't seen? A society more complex than isolated tribes typically have? Or is there something on that island they don't want anyone to find? Here's what they don't teach you in history class. In the late 1800s, a British naval officer named Maurice Vidal Portman became obsessed with the Andaman tribes. He kidnapped several Sentinelese people, including children, and took them to Port Blair for study. Within weeks, they got sick. The adults died. Portman panicked and returned the surviving children to the island. But the damage was done. He'd exposed the Sentinelese to diseases their immune systems couldn't fight. What happened next is unclear, but some researchers believe Portman's expedition triggered something, a deep cultural trauma that's been passed down for over a century, a collective memory that says, outsiders bring death. But there's more, much more. In 1956, the Indian government declared North Sentinel Island an exclusion zone. Official reason? Tribal protection. But here's what's strange. The exclusion zone extends 3 miles into the ocean. That's unusually large. Most protected tribal lands have smaller boundaries. Why such a massive buffer? And there's another detail. In the 1970s, the Indian government sent multiple expeditions to the island, far more than they've ever publicly admitted. Declassified documents show at least 12 attempts at contact, but only a handful were reported in the media. What are they looking for? What do they find? Some researchers believe the government knows more than they're saying. One theory suggests they discovered something during those expeditions, something that made them decide total isolation was the only option. Not just for the Sentinelese, for everyone. Here's the question no one's asking. Why does the Sentinelese population stay so stable? Estimates suggest 50 to 500 people live on the island. That range is huge, and it hasn't changed in decades. How? Isolated populations typically decline due to inbreeding and disease. But the Sentinelese seem fine. Are there more of them than we think? Do they have resources we don't know about? Or, and this is the theory that keeps anthropologists up at night, are they not as isolated as we believe? What if they've been watching us this whole time? Learning? Adapting? What if their aggression isn't fear, but a calculated choice? There's one final mystery, and it's underwater. The waters around North Sentinel Island are filled with shipwrecks. Dozens of them. Some date back centuries. And here's the thing. Many of those ships were carrying cargo. Gold, weapons, trade goods. Where did it all go? The Sentinelese don't use metal tools. At least, not that we've seen. But after the 2004 tsunami, observers noticed something odd. Metal fragments appeared on the beaches. Salvaged materials. Shaped. Used. What if the Sentinelese have been scavenging shipwrecks for generations? What if they have metal weapons, tools, and resources hidden in the jungle? What if they're far more technologically advanced than anyone realizes? And what if that's exactly why they don't want us to see? So here's the truth. We don't know what's on North Sentinel Island. We don't know who the Sentinelese really are. We don't know their history, their culture, or what they're protecting. And maybe that's the point. In a world where everything is mapped, documented, and explained, North Sentinel Island remains a mystery. The last place on Earth where humans exist completely outside modern civilization. John Allen Chau wanted to change that. He thought he could bridge the gap. He couldn't. And his death proves something important. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. But that doesn't stop the questions. What happened to his body? What did the Sentinelese do with it? And why, after all this time, do they still defend their island with such ferocity? The answer is out there, hidden in the jungle, buried in the sand, waiting. But maybe some doors are meant to stay closed. The Indian government has made it clear no one will ever set foot on North Sentinel Island again. The Sentinelese will remain undisturbed, protected, hidden. But somewhere in those jungles, the truth waits. And one day, maybe someone will find it. Until then, the island keeps its secrets. And the dead, they keep theirs too. And here's the thing. There are hundreds of stories like this. Mysteries the world has buried. Deaths no one talks about. Secrets governments don't want you to know. While you're sitting there, right now, someone somewhere is covering up another story just like this one. And if you don't subscribe, you'll miss it. You'll go back to watching whatever the algorithm feeds you. Surface level content. Safe content. Content that doesn't ask the hard questions. But what if I told you there's a tribe that eats their dead to preserve their souls? What if I told you there's an island where children disappear and no one investigates? What if I told you there are places on this earth where people have vanished without a trace, and the authorities stopped searching? These stories exist, and they're waiting for you. So here's my question. Are you going to let these mysteries die in the dark? Or are you going to be one of the few who actually seeks the truth? Hit that subscribe button. Not for me, but because you owe it to yourself to know what's really out there. Because once you walk away from this, the algorithm forgets you. And these stories, they disappear. Don't let that happen. Subscribe, and let's uncover what the world is hiding together.